Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle, the Pacific Northwest, and even once in a while north of the border. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, or maybe write a great book, this here is the podcast for you. This is where street smarts and book smarts collide. I'm Dan Whedon, and my co-host today is James Alberson. We are very excited to have our guest today, who is Jordan Babineaux. Jordan is a former NFL star, big play Babs with the Seattle Seahawks. You might not know he's also an entrepreneur, a broadcaster, and now has a brand new book out called Pivot to Win. We are very excited to learn more about his new book and maybe even pry a few stories about his time in the NFL. Welcome, Jordan. We are going to be right with you. For everybody else, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We are on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, James' favorite, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. As I always say, you could say we're ubiquitous. And there's a Steve Largent story about the word ubiquitous I might get to. We come to you from about a dozen cities, including the mothership in Atlanta, Boston, Boca Raton, Central PA. We're all over the place. Now, before we bring on Jordan to learn more about him and his new book, hey, James, how are you doing, buddy?
Dan, I'm doing pretty good today. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, I was thinking, because we have a former Seahawk here, I hearkened back, James, to my very first NFL game that I went to. I was 11 years old. The Seahawks were an expansion team, and it was their very first win. It was a preseason game against the then San Diego Chargers. I don't think Dan Fouts even played, but Jim Zorn threw a touchdown pass to Ron Howard. Ron Howard did not play college football. He played college basketball at Seattle U, but they turned him into a tight end, caught the pass, won the game 17-16. When Don Bitterlick kicked the extra point. I'm sure Steve Rabel knows all these guys because he was on the sideline. That was my first experience as an 11-year-old, and I remember it like it was yesterday. Do you happen to remember? I know you got to be somewhat of a football guy. You matriculated at Purdue. You're from Texas. Do you remember going to your first game?
You know, Dan, well, first off, I'm impressed that you remember that in such detail, that particular moment. So I don't know if the popcorn was particularly good that day, or there was some kind of weather-related thing that burned it into your brain. But hey, I'm impressed with that. First off, I never went to an NFL game as a child. My first NFL game was as an adult, and it was after I actually came out here to Seattle. And coincidentally, it was in the Kingdom. You know, at the time, I do know that the Seahawks were playing the Broncos, because a buddy of mine was the defensive back coach. So he got me good seats. And the one thing I remember about that day is two things. There was a young baby, or maybe a 1-year-old, on the lap of the mother in front of me, and had on kind of earmuffs or something. And I thought, what is this kid doing here? Because it was deafening there. So that was a little distracting. The other thing, I was disappointed because they stood up the whole time and I couldn't see the game. I didn't want to stand up for 3 hours. So your experience was probably a little bit better than mine, Dan. But that's
James, I gotta tell you, Barb, who is our intrepid producer and also my wife, reminds me of all of the useless information that I keep in my head. She reminds me that often. Jordan, I got to bring you into this. I got to ask you, you know, you have a first game that you played in, and I got to believe back then, coming in as an undrafted free agent, those preseason games had to be everything, because that's how you made the team. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that first preseason game and how you were feeling?
Dan and James, what's going on, man? I love the little man crush relationship that you two have. I could tell it echoes throughout the conversation and words that you guys share. Thanks for having me. It's super exciting to be a part of the show, and I'm excited to to share my story and experiences with both of you and with our audience. But I do have to tell you, I mean, you come out of the gate strong, using words like ubiquitous and and James over there is, clearly not, or maybe he is now, but wasn't a Seahawks fan because he wasn't standing on his feet cheering like most 12s do. So clearly he didn't get the code of conduct when attending the game, but that's okay.
Clearly I did.
You can always learn, man. It's not too late. Look, thinking back, my first NFL game, yeah, I was on the field. And here's a great story. How about a 20-year-old kid as an undrafted free agent, making it from Port Arthur, Texas, after a Division II college football career, playing at the historic Lambeau Field. I mean, I guess you can't write a better story than that. And if you've ever been to Lambeau or Green Bay, you're probably going for that reason. Lambeau Field sits in the middle of a neighborhood. Like I just had this, this thought of kids growing up in Green Bay and, down the street. I mean, literally down the street, there are homes like across the street from the stadium. Being a kid in the neighborhood and having Lambeau Field kind of in your backyard, literally in your backyard. The other thing I remember too were the nice sign language gestures that the fans gave us as we rolled through the neighborhood. So memorable in both ways.
That's interesting. So I'm curious, Jordan, when you think about all the challenges that you've overcome, not the least of which was making it, to the NFL as an undrafted agent and that sort of thing. I mean, what do you think what are some of the, I guess the lessons, that you've learned in overcoming challenges in your life?
Yeah. Kind of thinking about that, James, it wasn't until I was done playing in the NFL that I really gave some perspective to the route that I took. And, oftentimes when you're in it, in the grind of it, you're just putting in the work, right? And you're there to reach a certain outcome. Well, I was head first, and I didn't care if I was from a small school in Port Arthur, Texas, or a Division II school in Arkansas. I knew my reason for having this opportunity to be in someone's camp, and the Seahawks gave me that opportunity. Growing up in Port Arthur, a small town surrounded by drug abuse and violence, where the streets seemed like a faster way to make money. My father passed at an early age. I was 8 years old. And here we are now, my mother facing the biggest pivot of her life at 40 years old, having to raise 5 kids on her own, each to graduate high school and college. And my brother, Jonathan, went on to play 12 seasons in the NFL, all with the Atlanta Falcons. So we knew from an early age what it was like to face adversity and deal with tough challenges and, overcome the peer pressures of, growing up in, such neighborhoods. And we watched mom day in and day out, though it was tough, really create a blueprint of what it was like to be resilient. And, playing Division II football in a small school and knowing that I had to outwork the investment draft picks that the franchise had put into some of these other picks, I was like, challenge accepted, bring it on, So I certainly look back at my childhood and a lot of our upbringing and having dealt with those challenges at a very early age, being able to face some of, very different circumstances in it, but still adverse challenges while trying to be an undrafted free agent, trying to make an NFL roster.
So, what's interesting is, and I want to talk to you about why you decided to write the book in a second, but, we talked about transitions, and it's a transition from going from Port Arthur to college and college to the pros. And we've seen that the transition out of professional football can be really a challenge because I can only imagine being a professional athlete that defines you, at least for that period of time. That's who you are. And, you know, we've seen some of the recent things, and we saw what's happening with Richard Sherman, and I heard Cliff Averill talk about some of the challenges of that. As we look at transitions, and one of the chapters, it's a powerful chapter in your book, Pivot to Win, is From Millionaire to Solitaire. And you talk about mental health. Can you talk about and as we're coming off the Olympics too, where we saw what some of the Olympians had to step back and do, can you talk about that importance of mental health in all levels of transition?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned, a lot of what we have been seeing from some of these high profile athletes stepping away. I mean, obviously Simone Biles headlines have just been flourished across everyone's social feeds and news channels, which if you think about in that perspective, for her to, take that stance in the middle of an Olympics when, I mean, I don't know what it takes to be an Olympian. I have some idea. I've had conversations with Apollo Ono, in past. He and I have shared some conversation. We also talked about, transitioning from sport to life after sport and the challenges associated with that. The thing that I also want to share is that no matter where we are in life, when we transition and we make change is tough. Change is hard, right? A new relationship, starting a new job, going from employee to entrepreneur, moving to a new city, all of these different, change variations that we experience sometime during our life, they're threatening to what we know in the world that we once knew. So when I hear you say that as an athlete, part of it is our identity, and you're absolutely right. It's part of our identity. I mean, we all have an identity associated with some of the things that we do day in and day out. Doesn't mean that's who we are, but it has a part of our identity. And honestly felt like when I transitioned from the NFL that I lost a part of that identity. Here I am leaving what was a tribe for me for so long, where familiarity, and not necessarily comfort, but routine was disrupted. And I think that's the biggest thing, is when we start to experience this change, this emotional side of what we're attached to is that threat, right? We're under attack to what now having to move into what would be a growth opportunity or this change opportunity, whether we believe that we want to or that it's the right thing to do. There's still this emotional attachment we as humans always have to battle. And so having really having some transparency in that chapter, From Millionaire to Solitaire, spoke directly to that. Here I was moving into sports broadcasting, and what many people will see as a successful transition, internally, I was still dealing with this new change and this new disruption to my life when I really felt like I had more to do on the football field. And Dan, I'll tell you this, it's hard to believe that after achieving what I did while playing 9 years in the NFL, when I left the game, it felt like failure. Like, it's hard, right? And really assessing that and going through some different exercises of trying to wrap my head around, this was actually an accomplishment, a successful accomplishment that you achieved what you set out to do, helped me gain some perspective in moving through my own mental challenges. A lot of those stories I share in the book.
So that's interesting, Jordan. What you kind of described is you had a hard time kind of pivoting away from football to this next chapter. Now, your new book is called Pivot to Win. I'm curious, what inspired you to write the book? I think this last year with the pandemic and all that, pivot became the word of 2020 and that sort of thing. But tell us what do you think, or why did you write it, and maybe apply it to the importance of being able to pivot in life, sports, business. How would you address that?
Yeah, I'll start by sharing a quick story on how I even came about writing a book and where this crazy idea came from. So my mentor, Darren Hardy, success mentor, is like crazy successful. I mean, he's on a whole nother level. I mean, when you talk about routine and consistency, James, he's one of those guys who eat chicken breast and asparagus every day, right? I went to one of his business masterclasses in San Diego, and he's written several books. He was a producer at Success Magazine for over a decade. This has been his lane, his thing. And so he says it's about 100 business owners from across the globe. And here I am, one of those 100, in there to get an, in-person, experience with, his successes and stories and experiences that he was sharing and giving us some content on marketing and growth and sales and et cetera. So he says to us, if anyone interested in writing a book, come back, 5 minutes before the next session, and I'll introduce you to my book writing team. Where, James, I've always been opportunistic about seeking opportunity and creating my own opportunities in this crazy world that I don't lean on or rely on other people to create for me. There's a tip for our listeners right there, create the life you want to live. And so I come back a little early, it was a few of us, and here I am, have no idea or conception of what I'm even going to talk about, other than the fact that people have always told me is like, oh, the things that you've done from where you come from is remarkable. Well, how did you do it? And I'm thinking like, yeah, maybe I need to give some thought into that. Like, how did I do it? Right. I mean, I know the factors associated with it, but to me, it just felt like, wait, it was an aha moment that like, right, you're right. This doesn't just happen for anyone who plays Division II football and goes to the NFL. And so I went through this whole exercise of I went back to my room that night and started just taking notes by the decade and things that I could write about. And so I took him up on it. I called his publisher at the time. We had conversation, we chatted about it. And now this was 2019. So I know the pandemic happened in 2020, but I was already far along on my journey, James, writing this book. It was a 17-month writing process, 22 months to completion. The last 5 months was a lot of back and forth and editing and getting some unbiased opinions of people, in different business industries that could just offer a perspective for me from their seat as well. So when I look at applying pivot strategies to, life, sports, and business, now I'll share one that I share a lot in my talks, and it starts with a vision. I mentioned I played Division II football at Southern Arkansas, and James, it's okay if you've never heard of it. You're not the only one, because many of my teammates in the NFL had never heard of it either. They came from big time schools like, the Huskies, the Cougars, the Longhorns, the Trojans, right? And they played on national TV. What was our mascot? The Mule Riders. Yeah, exactly. That's the same response that I always get when I tell people we were the Mule Riders. They laugh, right? And I mean, it was such a terrible mascot name that I think that we even made the funniest mascots of all time on a late night talk show. But that's okay. I mean, they would ask me the same question. They were like, "You rode an ass, man?" My response was always the same. I'd be like, "Yeah, I did. I rode a donkey," and we both ended up at the same destination. And so that's where I think, one of the pivot strategies that I share is that you got to have a vision, right? And whatever that is, and planting that seed, working towards it, is where it would start.
Well, Jordan, I gotta go look up the Mule Rider logo. I gotta look that up now. I'm gonna be doing that afterwards. As a broadcaster that we got to pay the bills. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to take a short break to hear from today's spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Jordan Babineaux, for our hot or not section of the show, we're going to ask him if Tony Romo is hot or not. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank.
Sandler Training specializes in ongoing training, coaching, and consulting to help companies increase their top and bottom line results. As a business owner or leader, are you completely frustrated with lack of consistent performance from your salespeople? Concerned the team is not putting enough new strong opportunities in the pipeline? Disappointed at your team's inability to create value instead of selling on price? Or fed up with losing valuable margin due to unnecessary price discounting? If the end result of these and other challenges is a roller coaster ride of performance, consistently missed sales forecasts, or stagnant business growth, Sandler may be a fit for you. Sandler works with sales leaders and their sales team to refine their selling process, Put key management processes in place and improve execution to create sustained, improved performance and results. Check us out at www.toptier.sandler.com.
All right, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and thought leaders in the Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm James Albertson, your co-host. Our guest today is Seahawk legend and author Jordan Babineaux, and he's author of Pivot to Win. We have our next segment coming up, Hot or Not.
James, you really I love the pregnant pause there. I think you've just absolutely nailed that. Hey, listen, Jordan, this is where James and I pepper you with questions about business, about life, maybe a little bit about football. You're going to tell us if it's hot or not and then why. And at the end, I'm sorry, but you went absolutely nothing. So listen, everybody out there might now know who Tony Romo is, and they think of him as the CBS football analyst. But those of you familiar with Seattle Seahawks history know that Jordan made one of the biggest plays in Seahawk playoff history and may have been what spawned his nickname Big Play Babs. When Tony Romo was the holder, a field goal is going to go up to beat the Seahawks. He fumbled the snap, went to run, looked like he was going to run the ball in for the win. And out of nowhere came Jordan Babineaux to tackle him about a yard short. We just saw a blur of number 27. Now, my hot or not for you is kind of weird, but because I want to hear this. I know that in sports, especially those of us who played even at a high school level, there are times when the game is so it's like a blur. And then there are those slow motion times where it feels like everything is in slow motion. Hot or not, number one, running down Tony Romo to save the game. I'm sure that's blazing hot. But were you in flash mode or were you in slow motion mode in your head?
Oh, definitely in a hurry. That was my responsibility. I tell you what, had I not tackled him, I wouldn't have had a job the next year.
So can you tell everybody, so again, the ball snapped. I mean, if I remember correctly, that was to win the game. It was a playoff game. That was to win the game. All they need, and it was a short field goal. I think it was a 20-yard field goal attempt. Romo bobbles the snap, picks it up, and he's heading to the left corner of the end zone. What were you thinking as soon as the ball hit the ground?
Oh, that was definitely one of those oh crap moments.
Yeah.
You're just surprised. As you said, it was a chip shot field goal. There may have been just over a minute left in the game. It was a back and forth game with the Cowboys, and you're kind of lining up for this, this go ahead field goal, and you're like, yeah. In my mind, I'm looking at the clock because we stopped them, and we're like, okay, well, we get the ball back to the offense. I mean, our offense is pretty good. I mean, Hasselback was, throwing dimes and just making it look easy, and I came off the ball, and he dropped the snap, and I'm telling you, in my head, I was like, oh crap. And so I better get him. So anyway, one of those, diving, saving tackles where you need every inch and every second to make it happen. And you want to talk about a game of inches. Yeah, that is truly a game of inches.
Yeah, certainly it is. And certainly that was, there are these times in life where it's emblazoned in our memory where we were when this happened. Some very serious moments, some, not so serious, but still exciting moments. And I still remember where I was when that happened and the reaction in the sports bar I was at and that sort of thing. So there we go. Okay,
yeah, you're a Cowboys fan too, by the way, James. I don't want our listeners to get away without knowing.
I wasn't going to say that. I am a Cowboys and Seahawks fan. I was born in Texas. I get it legit. And yes, I went from elation to the doldrums in just that moment. But that's okay. So the next one, I don't remember that, Jordan. Next one, a hot or not. I'm going to go down to not adults playing, but child sports, hot or not, parent contracts for child sports, agreeing to certain behaviors and that sort of thing.
Wait, tell me about this, because I don't know. I'm probably going to say not, because I think we've all have seen, know of, or heard of the crazy parent in the stands that, screams at the players and screams at the coach, and coaches can't do anything right. And then now, I don't know, in whatever way, living their childhood dream through their kids, wanting some ownership of, how all of that is done. So what's happened now, James? It sounds like some crazy development is taking place. Are parents signing contracts for the kids?
No, the parents are signing contracts for themselves, agreeing to certain behaviors, agreeing to not do those things that you just mentioned. I've signed some myself for my daughter's soccer. I think it's, somewhat, it takes away personal accountability, I guess. But yeah, so hot to control it in that way or not?
Not, man. What are we doing? We're policing parents now. I mean, the enthusiasm of the game, I get it. Your child. Yeah, you're right. There should be some accountability as a parent in how to, a code of conduct at a little league sports game. Come on. I mean, living your dreams.
We're on the same
through your
page there,
kids.
George. We're on the same page there.
Not.
All right, we got a nod out of him. I think this one might be hot because he talks about it in his book, Jordan does. And so I'm just going to ask you this, hot or not, leading with vulnerability?
Oh yeah, that's hot. Certainly for all of our leaders out there listening, or those who are, early business professionals learning how to lead, self-included, which I think, I don't know, for some reason, I think it's just kind of like one of these lifelong journeys of, trying to figure things out as the world, the economy and business change so sudden. Leading with vulnerability, especially when leading teams, it's essential to kind of have that component. I think that's a great quality to have, and then get some buy-in from your team. Definitely hot, Dan.
Okay. So, we talk about this a lot in our training programs, but I'm curious to hear what your answer is. Hot or not, accountability partners?
Oh, love it. Love it. That is blazing hot. That's blazing hot. Look, I have values, I have goals, I have dreams, I have aspirations, but myself, I'm like, come on, man, you got to get this workout in a day. If you want to hit these health goals, or, you can't buy the new pair of Jordan tennis shoes if you want to get the new house, man, or, right? So you can always have these battles of within. I think an accountability partner or an accountability group really helps you achieve those goals. It's often said that a person they're more likely to achieve their goal if they share it with someone else, right? So James, if I tell you what it is that I want to do, or what I'm trying to do in life, or who I'm trying to become as a person, you're going to hold me to that, right? And every day, either I'm going to avoid you, but if you're my real friend, I wouldn't avoid you, right? I mean, that's the whole point of having an accountability partner, right? And you hold me to that standard. And again, we need each other, and oftentimes we have to lean on each other when we want to, up our game as a parent, a community leader, a business leader, a business owner, or someone who's just trying to attain a new level of personal growth. Certainly, accountability partners are what's hot for sure.
Hey, Jordan, I'm going to leave hot or not, because I've really been, one of the things I want to ask you was about this since we had you booked on the show. I've watched you as a broadcaster. I've listened to you on the radio broadcasts. I really think you do an excellent job, and I enjoy your commentary. I believe, though, that there's probably this sense from the casual fan that, okay, these athletes go into the broadcast booth or they become analysts or something. It's easy. They got luck, it's easy. It's just an easy transition. All they're doing is going in and talking about a sport that they took part in. But, being on TV, kind of like what we're doing now, or being on broadcasting, is not easy. Talk a little bit about that journey coming out. And now you're not only broadcasting, but you're broadcasting for a place that you played so many years. Talk about that as a journey in becoming that broadcaster.
Yeah, well, I mean, even when I came to the franchise in 2004, certainly I had a tremendous opportunity with the organization. First class, man. I was Look, James, I come from Texas as well. And so flying into Seattle, man, you got the snow-capped mountains, the houses on the hill and the water underneath. I was like, this is a postcard everywhere I look. It was just fascinating. Everything in Texas is flat and wide and, never ends. And you see highway until the road touches the sky. But I also wanted to dive into, really being a person of service. A lot of things that I did as a rookie was invest in the community. And I was just up at, Hawks headquarters this morning, and I was talking to the team about I had a media presentation with the team. And here I am telling these young players that, you have the tremendous opportunity to leverage this media platform. And certainly, look, James, I was reminded that I was a rookie 18 years ago. And I thought about that. I was like, wow.
It's a whole life. That's somebody's new lifetime. They're a new
It
adult.
flies by. It flies by, man. 18 years ago. And certainly the things and, access and social media platforms and different uses of technology, how it has exponentially grown for these athletes to just capitalize on opportunity and brand awareness and social movements and change and positive impact. The influence is just through the roof. And so I like to encourage them just to continue to use their influence in a positive manner. So I invested quite a bit. I spent 7 years in Seattle, but even when I left to Nashville and lived in LA working at the NFL Network, Seattle has always been home. Investing in relationships here, the youth, homelessness, and now working with formerly incarcerated. A lot of those things that reasoning for kind of making that change was really just being a voice for those who can't, or providing hope for those who are in despair. That transition felt easy. I'd say easy for me, or more natural for me, because I majored in communications in college. But even when I did transition, Dan, and here's kind of the people who on the sideline who looking at the people in the game saying, I could do that. No, man, I hired a coach, to help me with my delivery and my speech and, kind of being succinct and creating words and tying it all together, because it is an art. And obviously, the more you do it, the better you become. So, I say that the athletes who transitioned to the broadcast booth, they put a lot of work in on the field that merited them an opportunity that presented themselves when they were done. And I think we're going to see that probably this upcoming year with Peyton Manning. Some of them do well, some of them don't. And I think a lot of it just comes with how much they invest in the practice and the routine of, what's changed. Here we are talking about change. Dan, what's changed is their routine. And I think the best way for any of us, as we're all experiencing change right now, is to find a routine. And you create that new routine, it can help create a sustainable change for you. It won't make it easy, but it can certainly help create that sustainable change that we're all looking to make.
Well, we have a routine here, and the routine is taking a second break, which we're going to do right now. We're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. When we come back with Jordan Babineaux, we are going to turn up the heat. We're going to be punting the ball to him, and we're going to see if he fair catches anything or not on our Plead the Fifth section. And the first question is going to involve something. You know what? I'm not even going to tease it out. I'm just going to let him have it when he comes. Don't walk away. You're going to want to hear this when we come back with more from the Shrimp Tank.
Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors: Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, and the Kitsap Sun newspaper. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and thought leaders in the Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm your host, co-host. I didn't mean to slight my co-host, Dan. I'm your co-host, James Albertson. Our guest today, Seahawk legend Jordan Babineaux, and author of Pivot to Win. And our next segment is Plead the Fifth.
And Jordan, plead the fifth. Like I said, you can plead the fifth once, but I know you. Everything I've just heard you say, you're not going to fair catch anything. You get to do it once, but after that, not anymore. And at the end, again, you win nothing. But here's my question, Jordan. You played for Mike Holmgren in Seattle, and Coach Holmgren appears to be, from our observation, a potentially intimidating kind of fellow. He's tall, he's large, he's gruff looking. I got to believe at one point you did something to make him angry. What was the time, Jordan, that he was ever most angry? What did you do? And how did you pivot out of that one?
Oh man, you know what? You're absolutely right. So first off, Coach Holmgren has gotten a lot softer since his coaching days, and that's good to know that the guy does have a human side to him. But when he was the coach, he was a no BS kind of guy. There was no rookie hazing. There was no. We come here to work. We getting our work done, and all about business. So my favorite Coach Holmgren story that I love to share. We were at the team hotel, and here we are, a few players maybe had just completed our team snack or team meetings or whatever it was, and we're at the elevator, and the elevator opens. It's Coach Holmgren and security, and Coach Holmgren looks at all of us. He's like, "No, take the next one." I was like, "Okay, all right, we'll do, Coach, no problem." That's my favorite Coach Holmgren story, man. Well, but his nickname was the Big Show.
Big
we
Show.
call him the big show, man. They're like, man, look, the show coming. I mean, I don't know, Danny. I don't know if you've ever seen Friday, the movie Friday with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker, but when the Big Show came, he was like Debo. You better put everything away, man. Tuck it.
Oh man. All right. Well, hopefully he didn't do the kind of damage that Debo did. All right. So plead the fifth. Tell us something that most people don't know about you and would be shocked to learn.
Oh, wow. Well, most people don't know that I played golf in high school. Yes. Yeah. Oh, I got the reaction from Dan. Man, if you see me play and you know, obviously I love to play golf. I pretty much posted not all the time, but I'm pretty active on social media showing off my golf swing or where I'm golfing for the day. So people know that I love to play golf, but what they don't know is that I played in high school. Yep, we had the only all-black team that would show up at these golf tournaments in Houston and outside of the Southeast Texas area. And boy, we would go out there and shoot 112. But, you know, we didn't care, man. We didn't care. We had a day off from school and got to take field trips. It was a blast. And, you know, now I still play and it's fun.
So much for representing in high school. Over to you, Dan.
Hey, Jordan, first of all, now I found out we have definitely something in common. I played golf in high school. And so now I know that James and I are going to have to head over to Renton, or I guess I'm the only one who has to head to Renton, and we're going to go play some golf. I got my new TaylorMade Sim 2 driver, so we're going to go play, and you're going to sign my book, which I've got right here. So we'll make that a date.
You got it.
So I gotta ask you, plead the fifth. You've been broadcasting now how many years in total? How many years have you been broadcasting either for the NFL Network or for the Seahawks?
Yeah, so I've been out 9 years, so nine seasons.
I gotta believe somewhere in those 9 years, you made a mistake on air that you know it's out there, it's done. You knew it the second it happened. What was the biggest flub up you made either on TV or radio?
Oh man, that's tough. You know, I don't know. You know, other people can find humor in words, right? You know what I mean? The way you put words together, and you know, kind of our mind goes places that it shouldn't wander. I used to do segments at the NFL Network where I would dress up in this like silk robe, and I had a pet dog and a parrot on my shoulder, and I would have this segment titled "Know Your Role." And you know, it was, you know, one of those segments where I would make fun of a player, you know, who did something silly like pick up a fumble and run the wrong way, or, an offensive lineman trying to catch the football and run for a touchdown, like silly stuff like that. Dan, I'm sure the internet will long live the errors and omissions that I've had over my years, but nothing really comes to mind or nothing really sticks out. What's trending on social media that says otherwise?
We may have to go looking for it, Jordan. We may have to go looking for it. We'll see.
You won't have to look far. I'm sure it's out there.
So I'm going to do what Dan did. I'm going to exit the segment for a second and ask a more serious question. You talk about perseverance, and that sort of thing. Tell us what do you think it takes to persevere when sometimes taking the quick out, the easy out, is right there in front of your face?
Yeah. You know what, Jim, that's one of the things I think we as humans just naturally struggle with every day. I mean, here we are living in a world and environment where everything is accessible. We want it right now. And if we can't get it right now, we experience this kind of emotional separation or childlike behavior of discontent. When you look at like guerrilla companies like Amazon, who can have it at your doorstep here by the end of the day, we all think that success comes with some microwave recipe. And I'm like, no, you can't just put success in the microwave and 30 seconds later, you got a hot ticket. It's hard to kind of, really keep that focus and drive and energy when oftentimes we're experiencing or want something in life and we're not seeing the results fast enough, right? So we try, for instance, some intermittent fasting or some overnight miracle pill that just doesn't work. I'm like, well, the people that you see are in these successful positions now have put in the experience and, I call it sweat equity to get them where they are. So it's, yeah.
Jordan, let me interrupt you real quick. I want to bring it home. Give us an example of one of the times that you've done exactly what you're talking about when you think of your life and your career.
Well, for instance, how I got my role at the NFL Network. Funny story. Okay. So here I am. I'm in Tennessee. I had a good game versus I think we were playing Cleveland Browns, and they wanted to interview me for the morning show the next day. Well, I knew that life. I knew that I was in this way on the back nine of my career. I was going into year 8. I had just experienced the separation from the team that I had, come to love so much here in Seattle. And I was experiencing change, new team, new teammates, new locker room, new fan base, and essentially having to start over and reprove myself that, that I was still this high performing player. And so I was being interviewed, and I knew broadcast journalism was my, life after football, at least beginning first step path towards transitioning away from sport. And so in the middle of the commercial break, I'm on a call with the producers, and I'm like, you know what? I train in LA during the off season. Is there a way that I can come in and, get some reps and start working on my on-camera skill set, and just getting the lay of the land, maybe meeting people who, have decision-making power, that sort of thing. Right. So I'm talking about putting the work in and overcoming, this challenge of transition that always exists for anyone, whether it's being stuck personally and mentally, or not meeting or knowing or having the right people on your team that can help, push you to the next level. Anyway, I know that's one simple way, but I'll describe perseverance as this, James, perseverance is to keep going, don't stop. Mm-hmm. Now, we all deal with wanting to achieve something in life. And once you tell the world what it is that you want, it will come under attack. I don't know. Hey, I want a diet, but your friends wants to invite you out for drinks or appetizers, and you got to choose between the salad and the bread. I mean, every restaurant in the country, I'm exaggerating, not every restaurant, but most restaurants in the country, start with serving you bread and butter. Here I am on a diet, and then ask you what drink you want. I don't want a drink. I want water, and I want a salad. Right. But for the person who has, either diet restrictions or a diet growth plan or goal that they want to achieve, it's under attack. And look, the waitress had no regard of your goals or anything like that. Look, simple things like that, I think, are easy to point out, and that we experience all throughout our lives daily, whether we recognize it or not, because oftentimes we're walking through this world unconscious of what's really happened or what it is that we really want, don't have any clarity of what the end goal looks like, even if we walked right there into it. So I'll just leave you with this other strategy. I shared one which you call plant the seed, which is have a vision in mind. Well, this one here is you gotta beef up, right? And you say, well, what does it mean to beef up? Well, it's gaining this emotional awareness through our choices on a daily basis, right? Our choices will either take us to our goal or it would push us away. And it's probably it's really as simple as that. I'll make the choice that gets me closer to my destination, or I'll spend time in, behaviors or routines that don't support the goal or the person that I want to be in life. And so when I say beef up, it means to really look at those decisions and those choices that we have to make on a daily basis, and overcoming the challenge over time. This is how you gain grit. This is how you build resilience. This is how you're able to face adversity, in a way where you're looking at it as new opportunities. So strategy number 2, if for those who keep count, is to beef up and gain that emotional resilience over the choices that you make that pushes you closer to your goal.
All right.
Wow, that James. Oh, sorry, James. Do you have one more thing?
No.
No,
Go right
okay.
ahead.
Hey, I'm glad you asked that. That was such a great answer, Jordan. I was enthralled with your answer. Thank you for that. I think those are great examples. We're running out of time. I know James is going to ask you how people can get Pivot to Win, but I got to ask one more question, because we've asked this question of every guest this year. We asked the same question. We're gonna put these all together and figure out what to do with it after. But I know you're an entrepreneur. I know you're a broadcaster. You're an author. You're a public speaker. I'm asking you got to start a new business, and it's got to be based on a hobby. What would that new business be? And what would the hobby be?
The hobby would definitely be golf. That was easy.
Yeah. What would you do? What would you create some sort of a top golf thing? What would you do with golf? Would you be a professional golfer?
You know what? Believe it or not, Dan, here's the other thing that people don't know, is that I compete nationally in golf.
Oh
today.
My gosh.
Yeah. I'm on this. It's an amateur tour. You won't find us on the Golf Channel or ESPN3 or any of the networks. But I took second place in the last 3 tournaments. I know it's not anything to brag about, but it earned me a spot in a national championship. So I go to Carlsbad for 4 rounds in a national championship next month. So we have to check back, do a follow up, check back in with me at the end of September. I'll let you know where I finish.
James, I'm glad he told us that before he took our money on the golf course. That's
exactly. There will be no skins when we play. Well, one thing I will say really quickly is I hope you're not playing with any of your old high school teammates, because it sounded like you guys were terrible. But anyway, Jordan, people listening, I know they're going to want to learn more how to get your book, maybe learn more about your other business that we didn't talk about. What's the best way for them to do so, to get in touch and follow up?
Yeah, great. Thanks, James. Well, I mean, for those listening and have enjoyed a lot of what I've been able to share here in our short time together, you can head over to pivottowin.com. You can get a free chapter download right now of the book, Pivot to Win. It's an international bestseller. It went international bestseller in UK, Canada, and of course here in USA. It was a thrill to write it. Certainly, a huge process and undertaking, but the underpinning of the book really is about helping people navigate change better, right? If we're all going to experience change at some point in our lives, well, how do we create a process, or how do we create and develop some tools within to get better at it? Because change will happen whether you want to, or through some form of disruption like we just experienced last year with the pandemic, or it's change that you want to create within yourself by changing your behaviors and habits. And then Jordan Babineaux on all social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. James and Dan, sorry, I know you new generation have something called TikTok that I really don't know much about. So
I don't know why you're apologizing to me.
I know that's your
look
thing
like a
these days,
TikToker.
James. Well,
What?
you can be on there doing the whip and the nay or something like
Oh,
that.
Lord.
I don't know.
And on that note, our carriage is about to turn into a pumpkin. But if you want to catch the replay of this or other episodes, go to shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. You can catch a podcast on your favorite podcast venue, Apple, iHeart, Google, Spotify. As Dan said, we're ubiquitous. And also follow us on our social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Dan, you want to take us out?
I will. Jordan, thank you again very much. It was a pleasure to have you, and we will get out in the golf course. James, brother, hey, it was great having you on 2 weeks in a row. Thank you very much. Everyone, listen, our next show will be next Wednesday. We'll be live again here on this Facebook page, 12 p.m. Pacific, Wednesday, August 18th. Phil Simchich will be my co-host, and our guest will be my good buddy from Portland, Oregon, Gary Furr with Gary Furr Consulting. We've had a great time today, but we're out. Game's over, but it's time to move on. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond, in the shrimp